even if like proof of personhood goes away and you end up talking to a bunch of deep fakes, let's say, on your sales calls, going in person, even though it's very costly, and speaking to a human, there's still a place for it. And that's not to say that virtual solar isn't a really great gig. Like, there's always going to be a place for going out in person.
There he is.
What's up, guys?
Just to make sure we're clear, Jackson Doyle was early, on time, ready to go, and Joe Jordan was fast.
Always am.
No big deal, but just make sure it's stated.
Hey, I wasn't told I'm going to have to download Chrome for this conversation, so...
I already had Chrome downloaded, so we're good.
Who doesn't have Chrome downloaded these days? That's
what I'm saying,
bro.
That's
day two, Chrome was needed.
Yeah, I had a product manager interview with Mozilla like back in college, so I downloaded Firefox to learn the ins and outs, did all my bookmarks in it, explored all the functionality, and all of a sudden I was stuck for life. So
really, I don't know anyone who uses Firefox anymore. That was like mid 2000s, right?
What's the new one? What's the cool new one? Is it Brave or what's that?
Yeah,
Brave, I think.
Yeah, Brave.
That's the new one.
Everyone uses that.
Taking the browser world by
storm. Yeah,
let's make sure we do a quick introduction just to make sure we know who's here. I know Jackson Doyle was the first one here, so I want to say what's up. Jackson Doyle is been in the industry for a while, but he's doing AI solar chatbots right now, and he's been doing it for the last year or so. So really excited to have you here, Jackson.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, we've been building it for the last 3, rolled it out this year. And I apologize if you guys see me wiping myself a lot. I'm actually at a buddy's, and his AC unit broke. So I'm like sweating like crazy over here. But
yeah, they say you're working, bro. You're working your butt off, bro.
I'm just working so hard. I'm sweating. My brain just going so much, you know?
And then we got Joe Jordan in the house. A lot of people should know him from siro.ai, the awesome software that records conversations so that you can actually hear the conversation they're having at the door and then train on it. And it's not even a distraction anymore. The phone can be put away and still record the conversation all day long. It's amazing. Joe, thanks for being here, bro.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Just real quick,
did you guys ever meet each other? That stuff looks cool.
Have you guys met each other before?
No, I've never met him. I saw the website. It's super cool. I mean, we should connect offline. I'm sure we'll learn about it here, but super interesting stuff. I'd love to see how you guys are processing that speech to voice and voice to speech.
Hey, Josh, can you tell everybody why we have these guys together today?
Yeah, I mean, I was about to just jump into it. The AI, obviously a super hot topic right now, AI in sales, business, and all aspects of life pretty much. And I'm super interested in the applications to sales, obviously solar sales. I'm in solar, but you know, every aspect to it. It's interesting because with Siro, it's a massive resource for the internal side and helping the sales rep side of things. And then Jackson, from my understanding of what you do, what you primarily focus in on customer facing. So it's just a great example of so many different applications that we can use in sales and so many different needs across the board, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. I think that there's a broad spectrum of the new AIs that are coming out that will help in a lot of different operational, marketing, sales, etc. I think every aspect will soon be touched by AI.
Mm-hmm. Before we jump into, because I know both Joes know, we start talking and we'll go for like hours on this stuff. So let's jump into a bit about you guys in case people don't know you. Let's get it personal and, you know, your background, and then we can start jumping into some fun topics, which I'm sure will have no lack of conversation topics today. We call this segment, what do we call this segment, Joe?
5 words or less.
We have this cheesy
5 words or less
graphic that pops up. We got 5 words, 5 questions for you. You can answer the question in 5 words or less. We'll start with Jackson on my screen right below me, Mr. Doyle. Let's go broad.
Just really quick. Just, you know, from our past broadcasts, not everybody can do it 5 words or less. So I just wanted to just throw that out there. I want to see how good you guys are at actually doing it with 5 words. Go ahead.
I'll try my best.
All right. Let's go broad spectrum first. Mr. Doyle, describe your personality.
Personality. All right. I would say 5 words or less. Direct. Bold. What else? Let's see. Somewhat. Some people say charismatic. Aggressive and persistent. Those were the 5 I'd use.
There you go.
I like it.
If you weren't doing tech, AI, what would you be doing right now?
Well, don't you want to get Joe in there
tough.
too, or are you going?
Let's
go.
Let's get Joe in there first.
You don't want to give me too
Or
much
you want me to
time
go?
to consider my answers by going through all of them with Jackson.
I was trying to give you an unfair advantage here, Joe. Come on, Jesus.
I'm going to go with goofy, down-to-earth nerd.
There you go. Now,
Guys,
right back
He's
at
doing
you.
it in 4. Or I guess 3. Down to earth is 3.
Smoked you. All right.
Yeah.
Jackson, if you weren't doing tech, AI involved in what you're doing right now, what would you be doing?
I think that if it wasn't AI, it would be some other software. I have another software company, but I think I would do solar sales myself. I think if I wasn't helping solar companies, I'd do solar sales myself.
Yeah.
Run my own solar company.
Yeah, makes sense.
What about yourself, Joe?
Well, I have no idea. I definitely don't have the qualifications for this, but what I'd love to be working on is like an asteroid mining company or teaching physics. So asteroid mining or teaching physics.
Okay. He's going for the gusto, bro. Like that's the biggest thing I could ever imagine. Asteroid mining.
Yeah, asteroid mining. Yeah.
I mean, that's standard. You guys weren't expecting that? I've been working on a few asteroid mining projects myself. Yeah. You guys aren't in the asteroid mining space? Losers.
There are companies that are starting to work on this, which is pretty cool. It's hard to tell how far along they are from their press releases and their websites and so forth, but it's on the way.
Honestly, though, like that is but think about it. Think about how much money you can make just by finding one asteroid full of diamonds. You got more diamonds than the whole Earth has, then you might become rich pretty quickly. So, hey, you could dream, right?
Yeah.
The problem with that is that supply and demand then, right? Because if you have so many diamonds, then it's like, are they valuable? Right?
Yeah. The problem is you can't go for the precious metals. Like the whole reason gold, silver, diamonds are like valuable is because there's not a lot of them. But what you can go for is metals that are inputs for important things. Like if you can find silicon and lithium and all these
lithium, I was going to say
in computers, the rare earth metals, they're literally called rare earth metals because they're hard to find. And you can get those on an asteroid. Some asteroids out there should have multiple times the total mining output of Earth for some of these precious metals.
Yeah. So exactly.
I think we got to change the theme of the podcast.
Long-term play. Is that not a long-term play? Because no, technically silicon, Joe. If we mine in silicon, we'll get some PV manufacturing going like crazy. Get the biggest silicon resource. But isn't that a long-term play? Because we're not going to go and mine asteroids immediately. So would that be like a patent play or like getting contracts for the next century or something? I don't know. It doesn't seem like an immediate ROI.
Well, what you would do is you would try and gently nudge an asteroid into the path of Earth's orbit and try and get it stuck in either Earth's or the moon's orbit.
That
and then once it's
like
close to us,
scary book. Like that's like what happened. They tried to get around Earth, and that's how Earth ended. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then it hits into Earth, and then we're all dead. Yeah, 100%.
Very carefully.
Okay, let's try to steer this back towards solar and AI. Number 3 on the 5 words or less question, Jackson. Who is your biggest influence in the solar AI tech space right now?
That is a tough one. I would say that the biggest, I mean, this is just a generic answer, but I would say what they're doing with some of the LLM models with Bard and OpenAI and how they're manipulating those are the biggest influences currently for us.
sort of open source platforms that are taking that and running, or Bard specifically?
I think that they're laying the foundation that all these future apps. I'm sure I can get into some of the stuff that our apps are built on. But Bard and OpenAI and some of these other big Azure platforms are laying the groundwork, just like the internet was laid, right? Where you can build these apps on top of. So those are the people that we're looking to and how they're building these.
Love it. What about yourself, Joe?
Yeah. So on the sales side, my biggest influence is probably my former manager at Cutco, Gina Nappi. On the AI side, it's actually a couple of anonymous Twitter accounts, at T-Sizzle, Rune, a couple of other anon Twitter accounts in what they call Teapot, where they have a lot of inside information about what's going on in AI, and they have some wonderfully deranged and unhinged takes on where we're going, with respect to technology.
Is this?
I would love, man. If, I was just gonna say later you can share with me some of those Twitter ones, because I go down the Twitter rabbit hole with AI because there's so many new AIs popping up. It's like you can't even on Twitter keep track of all of them. I try to stay away because I go too far down the rabbit hole. It's like I divert to focus too much.
Are these similar to the Redditors who, for example, released Llama? That's the same sort of crew, I'm guessing. Yeah.
So I don't know if they're illegally leaking weights to important models, but just kind of hints on where they're going from conversations that they're having, and then there also have been leaked memos that I found on Twitter, like internal memos at OpenAI, or internal memos at Google about how they're still constrained by GPUs and they're worried about not having a moat, and how they expect scaling laws to continue to hold. Things like this that help you kind of frame your AI outlook.
Yeah, I don't remember the names of them. I've also been following the guys who have the agent GPT, where now they're able to process and build on GitHub the ability for these open source models to actually take actions and be basically given actions to then go and do it themselves, which is a little scary, but it's very interesting what they're able to do.
Love it. And last, or is it the last one or the fourth one?
No, fourth
let's
one.
Let's go last one here. Is it fourth one? Oh yeah.
Yes, fourth one.
We probably already covered it. But Jackson, why are you in AI, tech, solar, software? Any of these?
So my first company, Greenwatt, the company that's still run that has the AI, I first actually got into large C&I fields. So, and then I started my own company, Greenwatt, and I just had a lot of connections in solar. Thought solar was the most important industry because of renewables and being able to actually, help with the climate crisis. And then we can go into it further, but basically Greenwatt started as an AI-based lead nurturing company. So we had tons of data on conversation data, and I saw where it was going, where soon call centers and texting agents and everything else wouldn't be something. So we actually first started our first model on a software called Braza, which is an open source intent-based software, 3 years ago. And we've just been harboring data and processing it to build these models out.
Nice.
There's definitely more than 5 words, but definitely worth it. Great answer.
Oh yeah, I forgot we're in 5 words.
Yeah, these questions on are so tough to do in 5 words.
No, I did.
We're looking for simple.
I'll try. So I'll go with change lives through sales development.
There we go. Love it. And what is your ultimate tech / AI / solar software, whatever we're talking about today, career goal, Jackson?
Automate front end communication. That's fine.
Understandable.
Perfect.
And Joe, you sort of your last answer almost fit this, but maybe have another crack at it.
Yeah, more specifically, change the shape of sales productivity distributions.
Interesting.
Change.
Okay. So that's 5 words or less. Now we can use as many words as we want. And there's going to be a lot
Yes, we can
of
talk
words
normally
used.
now. No more restrictions.
As if we
Even
weren't.
though I blew that already, but yeah.
Okay, let's start off with like a big one. What do you guys think in a 5 to 10 year period? What is the biggest? I know there's going to be a ton. It's a difficult question. What's the biggest impact something like AI or AI specifically is going to have on? Let's focus on the sales process, front end, back end,
Sure.
and maybe even if specifically solar, if that helps. What's the number one that you think immediately this is going to change?
Yeah, if you want me to start first, I think that I think more stuff will change than people think. I think at first these tools will be a nice to have and they'll help you get ahead. But I think very quickly it will be if you do not have these tools or some semblance of these tools, you will quickly be behind. I think most operational things will be automated, and it will really come back to the basic business principles of really what is your USP, what's your unique selling proposition, and what's your offer. Because I think a lot of the operations, and I'm not sure, and that's why I'm super interested in what Joe's doing, because I think it will be a lot on the salesmanship, because I think a lot of the follow-up, a lot of the operational stuff, a lot of the other stuff will just be automated. Almost everyone will have models that are somewhat, and that's what we've tried to do, tailored towards their specific company, but they'll all almost do the same thing. It'll almost be like a CRM is. That's what I think. And it will be based on your USP, what you're able to offer, as well as how good your salespeople are, and really the rapport they can build with the customer.
See, that's interesting, because I was almost assuming, because you're on the customer facing end of things, I was almost assuming that you would say salesmanship will become a non-factor, because these models will be able to replicate the best salespeople in the world, blah, 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 and replace all of that. I don't believe that. I believe salesmanship will be the number one most important thing, and probably the last thing to be replaced. But why, because everyone who doesn't really know how AI works or even sales work will say, oh, salespeople will be completely replaced. So why do you think that wouldn't be true? And salesmanship is still.
Isn't sales too general? Is that what it is? Is like there's setting and there's closing, and this will take over the setting process, but they'll still need somebody to like cinch that deal at the end. Is that what you mean, or?
Yeah, I think that especially with a high ticket sale like solar, it's something that has emotional buy-in, even if it makes financial sense. And I think that things like what we've already automated a lot of, which is text-based, and then we're using, which I'm sure Joe has heard of if he doesn't use already, but Whisper and audio codes and neural through Azure. We're working on speech, but that's something that's basic. Hey, appointment setting, outbound call center work, which I think will be automated, and also the integration with that with back end stuff. Like we're working with Aurora to integrate back end with designs, so there's this connection between the front end and the back end. But I think that there will always be a place for someone sitting down face to face and trusting someone to actually help them in the salesmanship aspect of it. That's why I think having tools like Joe's, and that's why I was super interested when you sent me his website, Joe, is going to be huge, because you can make it more efficient. But I think that will always be a staple in any type of sales work, because I think everything else will be basically automated.
Yeah.
And
there's two angles that I would take here. First is that the actual conversation itself, the live conversation, either on person or online, is the most technically difficult part of the process to replicate. And the reason is, there are two reasons. One is you have to combine a ton of different types of models at the same time. For example, you have to be able to hear the tone in someone's voice. You have to be able to recognize the facial expressions in the video feed or in front of you. And then you have to be able to transcribe what they're saying and translate that into text. And then you have to understand that text. Then you have to generate text that you would respond with. And then you have to match that text with audio tone that you're producing and like the facial expressions on the image. And you have to do all of that in real time, quickly enough, right? To generate a
Yeah.
response without you buffering for forever. So that's
100%.
that's one angle I would take is the technical feasibility. The other angle is like there may be a part of this, and I'm not totally sold up on this idea yet, but I'll throw it out there. There may be an aspect of a sales conversation that's not automatable, even if you solve all the technical problems. That just comes from having a conscious being on the other side of the conversation. And it's a philosophical question, one we don't know how to answer, whether or not like you can create consciousness out of sand, like with silicon, and
Sure.
it's just a matter of information processing. But for now, let's posit that it's not. Um, there are two things you get with consciousness. One is it demands someone's attention. You know, people are perfectly willing to ignore bots, even if the bots are really smart. But as soon as someone shows up on time to your call and it's another person who's capable of experiencing joy and suffering, like it commands a certain level of respect and attention where you're at least going to hear this person out. That you can't get with a bot. So that's one aspect of it. And the other aspect is trust. Maybe this will change as we see models improve, but there's study after study that shows still humans tend to trust AI generated outputs less the moment they know that it's AI generated.
It's AI.
Yeah,
I was going to say the same thing.
That's a key thing there, though, isn't it? The moment they know. But who's been, following all these crazy AI images of the Pope around or Trump, and you're like, you have to do a second look. And this is still very, very new in terms of image generation and video generation. It leads into my next question here is so for example, in our platform, Cinevo, we have for like our walkthrough videos, we have some Synthesia generated video, right? Almost realistic, not quite there yet. And dynamically transcribed audio. And it's very close. If you looked at that and you squinted your eyes, you'd like, that's a human. So is there a world in which that massive hurdle, which is certainly a hurdle, right now at least, maybe people will trust AI more than humans in the future. Is there a reality that's coming soon where we have dynamically generated transcriptions, where we have ultra realistic video creation, and then combine that with the AI infrastructure for objection handling knowledge sources to put it together to emulate as best as possible, if not perfectly, a human experience? Could that overcome that issue that we're seeing there?
Well, if you buy the argument, right, that actually there's some advantage to having a conscious being doing the selling, and that you can't replicate or produce consciousness with computers, then as long as you believe one other thing, that won't be a world we live in. And that one other thing is that we will have good proof of personhood. And there's two ways that we might get this, right? There's already lawmakers talking with AI safety experts. The most famous one being Eliezer Yudkowsky, who was on Lex Friedman's podcast recently. People have very different opinions on him. I won't comment on him for now, but he recently had a conversation with Dan Crenshaw, one of the House representatives from Texas, where they were discussing, requiring that labels be added to AI generated content. Now, there are always going to be people who skirt the rules, but if you're having a sales conversation, there's no way a sales organization is going to be able to get away with skirting those rules. And so if it becomes a thing, people will know right away. Sorry, Jackson, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to chime in. I thought you were done. I apologize. I was just going to say that that's a whole nother, and I think you eloquently laid out those two possibilities. I think the third that you have to think about that we keep in the back of our head is that there will be regulation on any of this. Is that if AI is even able to get where the tech is that good, like you said, Joe, first of all, the delay is too much and everything, like you said, with anything with speech to text and text to speech. But if it does get that good, there will be some type of regulation. Like they're going to have to. It's going to be similar to TCPA, where it's like, hey, listen, you have to list that this is a company and opt out. There's going to be something like, hey, listen, you're talking to an AI, and we see that over ours. We're now introducing into our dialer the ability to have someone talk to an AI at first and then transfer it to an agent. And we see that the lag, even though it sounds and we voice synthesize voices, we find that the delay is too much in the tone and the pitch, that by acknowledging that it's an AI, people are more likely to speak to it and actually conversate with it. But if you try to fake out the person, you could do it through text, but through voice, it's just too far behind right now. That if you acknowledge that it is an AI and they're trying to help you, that people are more willing to actually engage with it. But if you try to trick someone and basically say, hey, this is, you know, a person, I'm the assistant, they immediately hang up or they're not interested. So in just saying that with Joe, I think that as we dive into this, I hope it's not like other things that have happened in the past with tech where the regulations have to catch up. I hope that people are taking what some of these heads of these industries, you know, the head of OpenAI and Elon and all these other big names are pushing for these regulations before it becomes something that's out of hand. But I think it will be very similar to TCPA, where there will be these set rules that everyone needs to follow to be compliant. And if not, you're basically going to get shut down.
Great reminder that 10DLC registration is in 2 weeks, the cutoff for anyone running SMS campaigns, 10DLC. As of time of the shooting. I don't know when this is going to be released, but
I'll just
good question, Josh.
Even if the regulation doesn't come, there are several companies working on proof of personhood. For example, a lesser known company of Sam Altman's is WorldCoin. You know, where they're basically trying to generate like one ID card per person and enforce that through technology, including the blockchain. But even if like proof of personhood goes away and you end up talking to a bunch of deep fakes, let's say on your sales calls, going in person, even though it's very costly, and speaking to a human, there's still a place for it. And that's not to say that like virtual solar isn't a really great gig. Like you can have way more calls back to back, and you know, the cost of running them is a lot lower, right? But especially for big deals, whether it's B2B or B2C, there's always going to be a place for going out in person. The Siro team internally talks about this all the time. People who don't respond to our texts or calls or skip their meetings because they don't use Google Calendar.
You're at the house.
All of a sudden, when we're at the conference, right, or we fly out on site, it's a completely different conversation, and you're able to connect immediately on a completely different level. And so if we end up even in a world where just like that last step, the in-person part of the sales conversation is where the humans come in, that's a world where sales is more fun because you're traveling, you're meeting people in person, and all the bitch work like is done for you and automated away. And so I think it'll become more rewarding, even if we end up in a place like that for salespeople where they're more valuable.
Just to comment on that, Joe, that was kind of to the aspect that I said, where I was like, listen, a lot of this will be automated. I mean, solar is more and more becoming a commodity in the fact that people are shopping it, right? People are shopping multiple people. So if, like you said, Joe, you could jump on a Zoom with an AI from this company and this company and this company versus someone's coming to your house for that final purchase. Like that's a differentiator. If you're willing to invest in those resources to actually have someone go out there, versus everything else will just be hey, what's my warranty? What's my guarantee? What's the price? And then you're bidding to the bottom versus actually having that human connection.
Just so with the AI identification, you know, would that be set up as almost like a KYC, like a KYAI? Who is running this? Who's developed this? What is it being used for? And at any point in time, would it be visual? If we get to that point where, for example, Jackson, you're saying there's a gap right now because it's not quite there. You actually get better results if you tell people it's an AI than try to fool them. Exactly. But I don't think we're very far off from going indistinguishable. So when it gets to that point, you know, then there's the concerns with the safety. How do you regulate someone? What does it look like in terms of visual? A watermark? Well, that's not going to be able to remove.
Yeah, I mean, Joe might know more about this than I do, but my view of in the future will be very similar to how they're trying to do with blockchain and NFTs, where you will have some type of verification that you are this person. So when you jump on a Zoom, there will be a verification or a KYC that you are an actual person. And if something jumps on that doesn't have that, there will be something that's not validated. That is my assumption of it in the future.
And Joe, you mentioned
I don't know
your
if
sales
that's your
org.
thought, John.
You don't want to. You're not going to get around the regulation. Joe, my friend, sales orgs are the first people that will try to get around regulation when it comes to sales. So of course, people
Trust me. I mean, yeah.
skip the system.
Well, it depends on what kind of sales org, right? Because frankly, you see it a lot more in the direct to consumer field sales world where everyone's 1099s and you're basically hiring anyone with a social security number and a pulse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you move to the online sales world, especially B2B, that stuff gets clamped down on much more quickly. And the tools themselves like want to cover their ass. For example, all these like note taker bots that join your Zoom meetings, they'll announce to the entire meeting room as soon as they join that your meeting is now being.
This. So annoying.
Yeah. We do a similar thing with our AI. Our three models work together, and if we have if the model reads the conversations and feels like this person should be DNC'd, it adds a tag because it's built into high level, but it adds a tag called kill switch, and the AI will never respond again. They could take the contact out, it's tied to that contact ID, but it's to protect us and to protect the company. Because someone could just un-D&D them and just message them. But the AI will not take responsibility for that. And I think more and more companies, like Joe said, because especially if these companies get bigger, these AI companies, there's always a way when you have that big of a target. And I think these bigger companies, these bigger sales orgs will do the same thing, that there's always a way for you to get sued. Even if they're not going to win the suit, just for it to drag out because there's such a big target on your back. So I think more and more of these, again, with that regulation stuff, is that it will be put in place that these AI companies will have to follow those certain guidelines.
All right.
And you don't have to necessarily believe in regulation and people skirting it. Like there are also going to be companies who can make a lot of money by providing proof of personhood on a Zoom call. And you just have to bet that they're going to be able to find a way to do that and make a lot of money doing it.
Sure.
So, and they're already working on this, but
same as companies that are trying to figure out ways to analyze video and find out deep fakes, right? It would be the same thing, right? Because there's going to be, with the ability to create content at the snap of a finger, any person. Like, it doesn't have to be a big organization now. These things with open source and DALL-E and all these other platforms, as they grow, you're going to be able to do whatever you want. You know, I mean, just some random person can do whatever they want. So I think, as Joe said, there will be a ton of financial incentive for companies to figure out ways to validate this content, this person on Zoom, whatever it is. I think that would be a big market. Yes.
Yeah, you can imagine having a Chrome extension. Maybe it won't make it to Firefox, but one that analyzes everything that's coming in, onto your screen in real time and tells you the likelihood that it's AI generated.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's going to make it to Firefox, but maybe.
All right. So we're talking about the future, but AI is here now. So, like Josh was talking about before, with its applications today, if you mention that it's AI, it could be a great setter. I mean, one of the main benefits is that time. There's no time. You could just keep talking to the homeowner for months and months and months and wait for that homeowner to be ready to buy. And then when they're ready to buy, boom, make an appointment. And then that closer has an easy close compared to other appointments. So, Jackson, how is AI being applied today? Is that the best way it's being applied right now, you think?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple things. I think that the ability to have through text or any of these text-based means and soon voice that we're working on currently, to be able to be the homeowner, and especially in such a competitive niche like solar, to have something that can answer questions about and basically educational questions, as well as the big thing that we're seeing for text-based stuff is that before someone would send like a broadcast email or text or Facebook, whatever it is, and then you're basically relying on someone to follow up, and there might be a delay, right? But with AI, it's like if you're texting someone and then they're responding within a minute, you could text them whenever, 24/7, and get a response as long as you're within the window and you could set windows to be TCPA compliant. But it's much easier for the homeowner to get back to that person wherever they want and get the response immediately whenever they want. That's why we see with the AI that conversion on text is much higher, because you're not having to have someone sit by their computer. It's an ease of use of the consumer to basically get a response and finish their booking whenever they want. If they do it at 9 p.m. their time, and normally companies would be shut down, this person could finish their conversation at any time. Additionally, we're working on things. We have implemented things with confirmation. So, for instance, let's say it's a Calendly, it's virtual, like your team, Josh, is that we can have it where the AI is doing confirmations like Calendly would do, but it's actually taking that. If someone needs to cancel, it'll immediately notify the company, and then it'll rebook them in real time. So now you don't have someone showing up to a Zoom or going to a meeting that the person's canceling because they're not on the texting platform that can actually look at this. And that follow-up is already automated. And it brings up things in the conversation from before. It's not just some canned response. You know what I mean? It will bring up objections that the person had before. For instance, like, hey, listen, I know you were worried about your wife not being able to make it. Is your wife, Cindy, able to make it on Tuesday at 4? It could read the conversation and give tailored responses that aren't just canned workflows that are just, basically branch trees that everyone else had before. So I think there's a lot with text-based, and I think the same with voice. Our goal is that in the next year or two that you won't need any type of inside sales rep, or you might have someone oversee it if there's a fallback and there's not a high enough confidence score. But you could call in the same number, you can cancel your appointment, you can ask it any question, you can do whatever, and it will also be able to interact with all these different mediums and remember you as a contact. So it can remember if you were texting it and then you call the AI, it will remember, hey, you're John, and you talked about your wife Cindy and how you have 3 kids and that you can't make Tuesdays, and it will follow up with that, because it's one hive mind behind this, instead of talking to individual reps and then being transferred to this department, and then I got to talk to my sales rep Joe, and then Joe left the company, right? So it has a lot of churn. It just allows for, I think, a lot better customer experience. And I think, again, by allowing the customer to know that it's AI, they feel comfortable in the fact that it remembers all this information. It can do a lot of the heavy lifting and then basically seamlessly hand it to a sales rep. And that's where I think, stuff like Joe's team and what they're doing is super important, because I'm not sure exactly what Joe's AI, I looked at it for a little bit, but to basically get all these notes, have one central place that the rep can look at. And then when they go into the home, they're able to use that information, and then they're able to take the information from the actual sales consultation when they're in home and actually be able to analyze, where do we see like we're getting objections? Where do we see like we're having fall off? Well, how do we optimize the sales process to give a better customer experience and have more close rate?
I love that.
Yeah. And because of that, and this is why, Jackson, I don't know if you know, I have a platform called Cinevo. It's solar sales tools, right? Calendar, CRM, system design, automations. That data feed of what you're talking about, having all those different pieces of data in multiple different arenas of the customer interaction, all in like a seamless pipeline, is perfect. All the way from the lead coming in to the system design to all the little conversational bits, and bringing that all together in a universalized hive mind opens up so many damn possibilities and customization options for pre and post sale communication with customers, having all of
100%.
that in one place. Yeah.
That's why we're working with companies like Get That Referral and Aurora, where you can have a seamless, hopefully in the future, you can have seamless communication with a company. And it doesn't matter where you are in the sales process. You can have any question answered immediately about your design, about your installed, about now that you're installed, how can you refer someone and make referral money? And you can have one point of contact that you can get all those answers, instead of, like you said, talking to different departments and everything else. And then hopefully there will be the assignment in some type of CRM to an individual rep who can manage or overlook that information, as well as if they want to step in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, how we have it set up is we have project management teams on top, and then chatbots to customers when they go to their customer portals. Sales reps can jump in if they want, but we have an overlaying thing, which would probably be replaced by this AI agent that has access, because it's a universal platform that everything has happened inside. They have access to absolutely everything. And even, for example, we just launched our new auto dialer in the platform. Even the initial appointment setting call, the closing call, the follow-up call, and all of that text transcribed.
Yep.
Now, please enter your email to start the conversation. They enter the email. They scan the file for all of these different data points. Oh, look, in the closing call, they mentioned something about their kids. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Mentioned,
cool. Yeah. And that, yeah. And that's the thing that we're hoping in the future is that you could have one rep. And that's why the auto GPT thing I thought was interesting, how they're able to put basically arms and legs onto these things, where if you have integrations with things like Aurora and you use Aurora, you could give someone a design in real time, don't even have to talk to a customer, and they're pre-sold before the rep even goes out, where Joe's platform would step in. And they could do things like, hey, listen, I actually don't want it next to this window in the north facing. And then it could redo a design and give that person a more suitable design. And then the rep would step in and actually say, hey, listen, actually, it's important that it's near this dorm or whatever else, because you're going to get that much more production. Then it's on the customer to do. But a lot of that legwork with design and communication and all that stuff going back and forth, I think in the future, in 3 to 5 years, will be handled by AI.
Yeah. So I think that what Jackson is working on really epitomizes the main trend, I think, that we're seeing with AI, which is that the lower value work or the least interesting work can be automated to free up sales reps to work on the most rewarding, highest value work and really develop themselves as closers, sales professionals. And Siro can definitely play a role in that. I mean, we do extract structured information out of the conversations. You know, what did they say their energy bill was? How long have they been in the home? Where did they say they moved from? What was their previous experience with solar? You know, that you can then feed that to, something like Jackson's platform to push along. What we focus mostly on is helping sales reps develop those skills that are going to become more and more important as the rest is automated, or at least like semi-automated in a co-pilot like experience. So some of the things that we do, we'll bookmark the key moments of the conversation. So say you run into a specific objection from a certain type of customer. We'll find the most similar moments from top conversations where the best reps in your company overcame that successfully, and then recommend.
That's so cool. Yeah.
So you can hear exactly how the person who you're always seeing at the top of the leaderboards, but wondering what they're saying to get those results, will actually tell you what they're saying at exactly the moments where you're struggling. And the chatbots we're building aren't customer facing. What we're trying to do is automate the really simple questions that a rep might ask. Like, what are the install times like for these types of panels in North Carolina? And what do I say when they say they're not interested? Like simple questions like this that managers answer all the time that just eat away at their time, which is valuable. We want to try to automate with content partnerships. We launched one with Sam Tagger. We're hoping to launch one with Josh in the next couple of weeks, so that you can have access to an expert sales coach in your pocket.
That's awesome. You guys are basically, and it's always that thing that you have the idea and then run with it. We worked with both Balto and Observe AI. I don't know if you know either of those platforms, but they're basically, I see a lot of what you're doing, but they were on dialers, which is much easier. But you're doing it at home. I literally said that. I was like, if someone builds this, we're like eventually with a sales rep, and now talking to you and you built it. That's awesome. Yeah, it's super cool. Cause I was literally like, listen, like you said, if you could take where, hey, listen, I have this top closer. What is he doing? What's his tone? Like the inflection points where someone seems like they're bought in, and you could take that and you can know exactly where that is, sort by it, and then play it for your whole sales team and be like, hey, listen, this is where you did this, or a new salesperson. And this is how you got your, response. And this is what our best salesperson did. This is what you're supposed to do. Like the efficiency of sales will go up tremendously. I think that's super cool.
What are you saying? It's not just knock another door. It's not the solution. Every time it's just knock another door.
Well, obviously the extreme of this I think whether I'm involved in this or whenever I know something is like there's an obvious end result, I try to work on it myself, but I always stiffen it to maybe I'm not the one that brings it out first, but it's definitely going to happen. You mentioned dialers, so just audio, right? Let's just take the medium out.
Sure.
It could be dialers, it could be live audio, right? And then you have that data set that is trained on how to respond properly, whether you're on the door or whether it's integrated into an actual dialer. We just launched our new auto dialer in Evo this week. And listening to that and then inputting in real time what should be done, what shouldn't be done. That's really getting to the point of you're doing all the work for everybody, which brings up the question, is this a good thing? Because I'm a massive believer in the grunt work, in the bitch work, as Joe calls it, right? In the cold calling, in the door knocking. I've done it for so many years. I know what it builds for people, right? Oh, I think we got a dog in the background there. I know
that's mine.
Or the grit that it builds for people and what people learn from it. So obviously, if people didn't have to do the grunt work, that sounds like a good idea, but is there actually a risk of making salespeople more soft, I guess you would say, because they didn't, what I call, go through the fire of the cold calling, go through the fire of the door knocking? Are we ending up in a soft sales environment? What do you think?
Well, the question I would throw back at you is like, are we softer than our hunter-gatherer ancestors because we have dishwashers and grocery stores and all these appliances that make our lives easier? We tend to find ways to grind. That's just who we are as a species. Whether it's sending a bunch of follow-up messages or follow-up emails, right? Or whether it's spending hours in the film room studying the conversations because all we have left is the conversation. But in order to have an edge, right now, I have to study the conversations and get better in a way that I didn't have to before. We tend to find ways to grind because when the process gets easier, the stakes just get raised and the standards just get raised.
So it's like the old
what I was just
guy who he didn't like when he was always calling manually on his phone. Then a young kid come along and developed an auto dialer and said, "Oh, you're being a lazy ass. Just pick up the phone and manually call." But then the guy using the auto dialer was calling 1,000 more people every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the thing, especially for solar companies directly, is like it will be a recruiting tool, right? Because if closers and the best closers are what you want, it's the same as when it was first leads, right? We're feeding our closers leads. You don't have to door knock all the time. Now we're feeding them appointments. And the best closers go to those places that can get the highest commission, and they basically have to do the least amount of grunt work, right? Because they have a skill. They don't want to have to go and door knock for 10 hours. They're really good at their craft. So if you then have it where it's like, hey, listen, you have all of these tools where all you have to do is show up. This person's pre-sold, and you could sell them, and they're going to buy more times than not. I think that is going to be a huge recruiting tool as well. I don't think that there's going to be many people who are going to want to just pound the pavement when you could go to a company that uses these tools and not have to do that, right? I mean, I know for myself, if I was picking between two companies and I was a good closer, and they're like, hey, listen, you're going to have to knock for 10 hours, or I'm going to put 20 appointments on your calendar, and they already saw the design, and they're just looking for someone to get you to sign. And all I have to do is use Joe's tool and look at the best closers and basically study that film, like game film. I'm going to do that 100 times out of 100.
That's going to evolve fast, though. Like, it's going to be where that's going to happen. Those companies can recruit the fastest, but then everybody's going to do it. And it's like, all right, we all are going to have these leads. So, like, is that going to happen in the next month, the next year? That's the question, right?
Yeah, I think it will need some time, but that's what I was trying to say in the beginning, where I think it's you will get an advantage by testing out these softwares and trying to figure out how they can help you be more efficient. But I think very soon it will be something that if you don't have them, if you don't have this integrated, you will immediately be behind the eight ball, because attention is becoming more and more expensive. Leads are becoming more and more expensive. What's really going to get people down to that favorite $1,000 CPA or $1,500 CPA or whatever is in solar, or any of these big ticket item industries, is not going to be on the marketing side in terms of actual impressions and the cost per impression and cost per lead. It's going to be on the operational side. Is I don't need, all this staff. I need 30% of this staff. I can do all these different things so much quicker, easier, more efficient. That's what's going to bring down your CPA, is those soft costs on the back end, not on the front end when it comes to marketing. I don't think that will ever happen. I think as these tools come out, things like Facebook ads and Google ads and cold outreach and door knocking, those will become harder and harder, because there will be more tools for any person to basically be able to do things. And there's more companies like Power, right? Power, you could sign up now and you could become a seller and have a distribution network where you could sell a system and just put it into their system and get paid out. And you don't have to have any training, right? You could sign up as a level 1 seller and sell today. I could do that, right? So I think that will be the future.
Yeah, to give you a sense of this, Joe, I won't name names specifically, but we had one solar company that wasn't a customer. 2 of their high-level managers were about to leave the company and go to one of our companies that is a customer. And one of the main reasons was because our current customer had Siro and their current company didn't. Now, their current company was actually already in talks with us. So it just accelerated our deal and we ended up closing them. They ended up sticking around because their company got Siro. But not every company is going to end up making that choice, right? And some companies are going to lose talent for it. Eventually, the game will even out and you'll have to have it. But like Jackson said, there's an advantage to being a first mover.
Yeah, and I think that right now it's fancy with AI, but I think the way that people should think about it is the same as if you're using Google Sheets as a company and someone had Salesforce. It's like operationally, if I can have a company that everything is equal and one company uses Salesforce, I can track everything. And the other I got to do in Google Sheets, my own email, is like, I'm going to go to a company that has tools like Salesforce versus if they pay the same commissions, I get the same leads, same everything else. And I think that's what will be with these AIs.
So AI,
you mentioned,
so far, just really quick. So the AI, the tools that's going to help is sales, right? Setting, at least. Training is what Joe was saying. And customer service, you guys mentioned too. What else is there besides those 3? Designing, is that going to happen quickly? I don't know what else could happen during the solar operations.
I mean, design is already something that companies like Aurora is the biggest, right? And we've been talking to them about how we could integrate the bot in the front end with their design. They have that lower tier, I forget what it's called, but no one sits around that 6 minutes to have the design created on their platform. So they want to integrate to chat and take the raw image data and actually transcribe it into a JPEG or a PNG that can actually be sent. But design, I think, is already moving in that way, where you don't have to drag and drop every panel. Like they can use, these imaging softwares as well as, the roof lines and everything else to do basically 80% of the design, 90% of the design, and then you're just editing the design. You're just checking it before it goes through. It's basically like a production line. Mm-hmm. Instead of you putting the product together, you're just the person now standing over the production line. And if something's awry, you're fixing it. But you're not the person actually doing it with your hands. You're just making sure that the production line works well. I don't know if that's what you're seeing as well, Joe, but talking to Aurora and some of these other companies, I see design is already underway with that.
Yeah, absolutely. At SolarCon this year, I met a gentleman who was working on a proposal company where one of their projects was automatically generating a design for a house so that even the setter who's knocking doors can not just show them the homeowner where their roof is getting a ton of sun. They can show them an actual system on their roof and say, hey, we designed this system for you in the set conversation. And I apologize to that gentleman for not remembering exactly the name of his company. But for sure, we're starting to see this. And like what you can imagine salespeople starting to become is almost like managers of a bunch of subordinates who are doing work for them. Yep. And they're just checking that work. That's the analogy that I tend to think of. Is like, imagine having a team of 3 or 4 people underneath you that you don't have to worry about their salary. You don't have to worry about their motivation. You just have to make sure their work is right with a quick check.
Where we're already seeing that with us, where people are and I would like to think that they're moving them into different positions, but where you could take one setter that was maybe doing text-based stuff, and now it was 10 setters, but now they need one setter because that person is just basically getting the fallbacks of when the AI doesn't have a high enough confidence score and answering that. But you don't need someone going through every single conversation because the AI is handling it. I think things like operations as well. I think very soon you'll be able to have something where you'll be able to have a system designed by something like Aurora, and then also be able to integrate with your backend and what's in your warehouse, and actually be able to pull in and put that into the design. Hey, listen, we have this many Canadian panels versus Jinko. So like we're going to, and we have this much delta on it. So our first proposal is going to be this many Canadian because we bought it at this price, and we can have this production be the same, and it's going to give us a higher profit margin. And that will all happen automatically. And then someone can go in and change it if they like, but that's something that, again, like Joe said, it's like someone managing it after the work, the grunt work has been done.
And I think in the long run, right, this actually creates more opportunities in sales. One of the most common things I'm hearing, especially right now with higher interest rates, is solar companies having to make cuts, having a lot of difficulty scaling because they're not getting the profit out of each sales rep that they were 24 months ago. And as soon as you add these tools like Jackson's and like Siro, now they become a lot more profitable on a per head basis again. And it becomes a lot easier to scale. And the overhead for each representative is reduced. And it becomes a lot easier to go ahead and sign more reps and open a new market, so on and so forth.
Yep. Yeah, I was saying the same thing with the operations costs in the back end being lowered because your marketing costs and getting attention is going to continue to raise as impressions will always go up. I don't think impressions will ever go down to what they were before on any medium.
So people are losing jobs then, right? People are going to be losing jobs. They're going to be moved from a setter to a closer. They're from customer service to a different place in the operation. So what's going to happen? Who's going to be moving first? Is it going to be setters, like door knockers? And should they be focusing on learning how to close like right now? And like you're going to be losing your job really soon because you're not going to need setters as much if you have AI doing it, right? Who should be worried the most?
Well, I didn't really pay attention in history class, but I remember one thing from history where every single like new age, like when they in the industrial age, 90% of occupations were basically just white. And I think that, I don't know if it will be 90, but I think that there will be a huge shift and it will be more skill based, like you said, prompting and overlooking and managing. And I think there will be a lot of new companies that arise and there will be a lot more competition because it will be easier, but it will be skilled positions like Joe is helping with Siro, where you are going to try to train to have a more skilled position than a setter who can learn a call center script or message someone back based on templates. That's a drop down in the next few years. I think that will be the move, and that's what people should be preparing for. That's my opinion.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is as opposed to like everyone losing their jobs and needing to be super afraid. The way I like to think about it is that everyone's getting a promotion.
There you go.
And there are jobs now, to Jackson's point, that never existed before. And with every industrial revolution, we can debate which ones classify as industrial revolutions, but as jobs were destroyed, more jobs were created. There's not really jobs. Rather than name a bunch of jobs that don't exist anymore, we can name some that do now. Like there weren't pet barbers before. Like what the hell is a pet barber? There weren't social media influencers. One of the things that's interesting is like for forever, when you ask kids what they wanted to be when they grew up, they would say firefighters or astronauts or police officers. And this generation is actually the first one where the most common answer is influencer, which is really interesting, right? And so new jobs are created. People get promotions. People get different jobs, more interesting jobs.
So there's obviously anyone watching this right now, if you know the way an industry moves, it eventually gets to self-service as the product becomes commoditized, right? What we're talking about right here is, I mean, we could even take AI out of the conversation. It will eventually become commoditized and self-service. Like look at Tesla is almost doing it successfully, right? Solar.
Yep.
But what we're talking about is just a seamless experience, customer-facing experience for self-service solar. Now, from what I see in the market right now, based off of my history in Australia, which is about 10 years in front of the US for solar, we're not at that point in terms of customer awareness, right? Customers do not, I call the market that we're in right now, solar is a scam. And the next market we go into is, I know I'm going to get solar at some point. I just don't know who from or where. That's the big boom. We're still in this solar, maybe, nah, I heard it wasn't good, but did that guy get it? Nah, I don't know. We're right there. So self-service is not really going to work unless you're a Tesla, who everyone would just, you know, Elon Musk releases a widget and it gets bought out in half a second. There is definitely going to be a period of time, I would say 1 to 3 years, before we get into anywhere near the self-service solar. But do you guys think that's true when we do get to that point? We're talking about how this tech is going to automate a lot of stuff. We're talking a lot about the sales rep side of things. What about the customer-facing side of things? How automated do you think it's going to go? How far into the future is solar going to be commoditized? Will sales reps ever, Joe, you were mentioning, if there's not a conscious observer, maybe we have some quantum uncertainty principles at play there. What does that timeline look like, if there is one?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say is the reason that, you know, Siro exists is because we believe sales is here to stay. And I've sort of made a few arguments like about that already on this podcast, so I won't rehash them. But you know, you're talking about self-service as products become more commoditized. There are examples where things become completely self-service, but there are also examples of technologies that have been around for a long time that are somewhat commoditized, that are still sold by a salesperson. For example, cars. Most cars today are still bought through dealerships, right? Because it's such a big purchase that matters so much to the consumer, where there's a little bit of like trust that needs to be developed to bring the person across the finish line. Now, I'm not sure if solar is going to be like buying a car, but there are a lot of similarities, right? It's an enormous purchase, right? The purchases for cars and purchases for solar systems are on the same order, right? In terms of cost. And they're also very, very critical, right? Like everything in your house runs off your solar panels. Your whole entire family needs to be safe inside your car, right? Now, I think that the question is, cars, I think, are more similar than they are different, and companies emphasize the way that they're different so that people come buy theirs instead of everyone else's. I think the reason Tesla's been able to get away with not having auto dealers is because they really are that much different.
Yeah.
Will solar panels be different enough to warrant this, or like, are there really actual important differences between different car models? I'm not sure, but that's one area you could see solar going. But the other dimension is the complication, right? There's a lot to solar. The way the net metering works, the way the offset works, the way the savings work, the whole value proposition of power costs going up with inflation over time. There's a lot that you have to explain that people don't just hold in their heads, which is another reason why I believe there's still a conversation that's always going to be a part of a solar sale. There's a consultative nature to it. Sorry, Jackson. I'll let you jump in.
No, I was just going to say, I basically was just saying, I agree. I think if you look at the Carvana model, it failed, right? Because people just didn't want to go and get a vending machine car. Like it hasn't grown to where they thought everyone would be going to your local car vending machine and just buying a car there and hooking up with the financing and being done. So I agree. I think the nature of just how large it is, and I think the emotional tie to someone's home, very similar to, and I think even more so than a car, where, hey, listen, I'm putting my loved ones in this car, and the security aspect of it. I think that solar will always be or for a long time, be an actual sales oriented, real salesperson. Not like a, hey, listen, I shopped online and solar reviews hooked up with, Tesla and I could buy it right from solar reviews. I don't see it happening. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen, but it'd be very hard for me to see that happening unless everything became such a commodity and it was basically enforced through regulation that everyone had to get solar. That could also be a possibility, I think, in the future with just government regulations and new home builds and everything else, like what they did in California.
And to bolster that, I always talk about this cognitive dissonance that is very interesting in solar sales and the psychology of it. I have this little Bible here. It's a bit blurred out. It's a book. It's called The Concept of Solar. That concept is how for decades and decades and decades, when we see a cost or a payment, we're thinking an out-of-pocket expenditure that does not replace an existing expenditure. Products like solar, a takeover product, right, if you will, are very, very rare. So when you go to the store and you see a product on the shelf and it says $12.99, immediately your head goes to, I have to take $12.99 extra out of my pocket. Whereas solar, when you see that monthly payment, it's very, very different, right? Because your utility bill is at $300, $500, $700, and the solar is less. But and that is obvious for us that know solar. Yeah. So your utility bill is at $300, solar is at $150. That means that there's a reduction in costs. But it is a fascinating cognitive dissonance with the average person that when they see that solar payment online, on an app or whatever, they're not getting all of that contextual understanding. That price, that cost, that singular number by itself is attached to decades and decades of what is a cost, what is a price. So this is why very often lesser skilled solar sales guys, they'll always think it's the numbers that sell solar. I was going to say this before. If you want to prove the theory that salespeople are going to be needed in solar sales for a very long time, just do this very, very simple practice. Next pitch that you do for a customer, cut your price per watt in half, like something that you couldn't even offer. And don't do any salesmanship. Just send them a proposal with what the numbers are and see how many deals you get. You will get zero. Because the customer's cognitive dissonance of what solar works, solar economics, how these numbers actually play into, as opposed to all the normal products they've ever purchased, is so vastly different. I highlighted this a lot when I was training back in the day. The first time I noticed this, I would get at my whiteboard, train these guys on how solar works. You have solar panels, here's the grid, your house gets solar for blah, 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 and the number goes down, right? Did a very basic understanding. And everyone I was training would be like, man, this is so sick. This job's going to be so easy. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Here, grab this whiteboard marker and show me how it goes. Yeah, I'll grab it. Oh, cool. So the solar and the solar. Wait, what is this? Wait, how does that work again? Just immediate. It's just lost. It's so interesting how this one concept of solar economics, whatever we want to call it, is different, and it requires, first off, the human understanding, and then how to, convey that to the customer. But it might be
100%, man, and it's all financial literacy, right? That's why, even though it's not in the best interest, that's why things like leases are coming back, even though people saw that they were getting ripped apart by leases. Why are you offered a lease? Because the hedge funds will buy your system, right? It's in community solar. Again, hedge funds, sometimes municipalities, but they're buying these huge arrays and they're selling it to you at maybe 2 cents reduction, but they're still making all the money. They're still getting all the tax break. So I think a lot of it is just homeowners not understanding. I think a lot of it is just basic financial literacy and understanding how at different levels people play a different game. But I think there's a huge opportunity as well in things like community solar soon. I think there will be more and more fields that are being made. And then community solar, this whole underserved market of renters or your credit sucks or whatever else that want some type of reduction because of their income status, or they like green energy or whatever else, they've been underserved. And that hasn't been a market that's been tapped into for a while because it was all purchased for forever. And with the high interest rates, I think it will make sense for people to dive more into community solar.
Yeah. Interesting. We had a discussion with some reps from it was Michelle and Spencer, I believe, from SolarEdge and Enphase a while ago, and we were also talking a bit of AI chat, but more so on how AI is going to be affecting sort of decentralized community solar and running the algorithms for pricing in real time. Now, I don't think I don't know if anyone has in-depth knowledge on how that infrastructure works, but that's also an interesting application to whole home energy systems and making things super, super productive and efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I don't know exactly, and Joe could probably, he seems like he's much more technical than I am. A lot of the stuff that I say, I have much smarter people under me, and I'm more the business mind, and they just give me the buzzwords, and I say them, and I'm good at saying them. But I think the thing that people think when they think of AI right now is that AI can just do anything in its general knowledge. These algorithms are trained to be specific to their objective right now. There's no general AI. So they have a specific task, and that's why these AI companies are looking to partner together to combine their different models to give an output that's actually tangible in the business world. But it's not something that I think people are, I know that people on my sales teams get on and they're like, oh, well, why can't it just do this? And it's like, it's not trained to do that. It is inherently a program in code that learns from itself, but it is a program that has a specific objective. It just can't do everything. Maybe we'll get to general intelligence with AI soon, but yeah, that was my 2 cents on it.
If you think Joe's a nerd, you should meet his data scientist. That guy's wacky.
I'm sure.
This is a great intro to what are the limitations out there. So, I mean, when I wanted to do this podcast, I asked Joe Moose, said, hey, let's get some people on. And then I started asking, okay, what do they actually do? Do they just know how to, use Chat GPT, or are they actually involved in the infrastructure side of things? Because there's so many AI bros out there, and I may be one of them, but I'm not claiming to be an expert on it, that are like, yeah, it's going to change the world, dude. You'll be able to do everything. And I see some wacky shit, and people having no understanding how any of this actually works. What are some limitations? What are some things that you guys are seeing when, for example, you said, Jackson, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? That aren't going to be possible, or just misconceptions about how the applications can be applied to something like solar and sales?
Yeah, I'll go first really quick, just specific about our tool, or our tools, and what we've been working on. So these algorithms that you use, these LLMs, they use tokens. So when you just put constraints on a model, like a prompt, there's a certain amount of tokens that the model could take. That's why we utilize a few different finely tuned models, because it's basically baking the knowledge into the model and training the model inherently. So you have to use less tokens. When you do any type of conversation, the model, the less the conversation is, it's like a graph. The less the conversation is, the higher the confidence score. The longer the conversation and it has to answer accurately, that graph starts to basically be pulled apart, and the confidence score goes down. And the more actions or anything else that it wants to do accurately. So I think that's a big constraint right now. And why we utilize some of the newer models, but also have our own finely tuned models. And then I think the big constraint with the voice that we've been working on is what Joe touched on earlier, is basically voice is speech to text. It's like a sandwich. Speech comes in, change to text, then it's the text, and then it's the speech. And there's too much of a delay. And then also the AI does not understand tone and pitch well enough yet to actually sound like a human. It can be synthesize a voice to sound like a human, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to take the pauses or speak to you in the tone that would replicate the tone that you're giving me, like I could do right now.
Or you're not AI?
I don't know, man.
I thought you were AI.
I uploaded a video of me, and I had a nice, those things you upload a video for half an hour, and I made it say some wacky shit. It sounded like me. I sent my mom in our group chat. I did my sister's voice, and I made her say something funny. I put it in the group chat. It sounded identical to her. It was hilarious. Yeah. But it took about an hour to generate.
I was on mute, but I was just saying that if I was AI, I'd be much better at this interview than I am. But yeah, I don't know, Joe. What are you seeing on your end? We're pretty heads down on the models that we use, so I don't really know the limitation of other models, to be completely honest.
Yeah. Well, like, what are the limitations of AI models is a pretty broad question. But if we narrow the scope to large language models, the limitations are pretty well understood. One of them is context length, which Jackson brought up. Another is latency, which Jackson brought up. Um, the other things that I would mention, Jackson also touched on this, but if you want to do something very specific, um, it can be difficult if that thing, like text about that thing, isn't readily available on the internet, because that's what these large language models are trained on. So, for example, there aren't a lot of transcribed solar sales conversations on the internet. So, if you want to get an AI that really understands how to coach someone on solar sales, or how to generate like responses that maybe you should have used in a certain situation, you need to train it on a lot of solar sales content, right? Or solar sales conversations. Now, with Zero, we now have 1.5 million sales conversations that have been recorded through the platform. So
Wow,
this
that's
isn't really an
crazy.
issue for us. But one of the things that we're running into now is like, since we started working on Zero, transcription has improved enormously. Um,
Yep.
the metric that's used to measure transcription quality is word error rate. And since we started, the word error rate was cut in half and then cut in half again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and still, there are all sorts of little ways that things are mistranscribed, or hanging words are attributed to the wrong speaker, to where we have to work really hard to get these conversations in good enough shape to where these models can really understand them.
Yeah.
Um,
Clean the data. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the conversations that we recorded, say last year or 2 years ago, like if we really want to use them, we've got to retranscribe them again and touch them up
Yeah.
using our latest models, right, to make them useful. And that's expensive, right? I think a lot of companies, a lot of individuals just don't have the capital to really take full advantage of at least recorded conversations. Now, we just raised our seeds, so that's not an issue for us. But these are some of the challenges that we're seeing. And the interesting thing is, it's really only GPT-4, the latest model from OpenAI, that seems to be able to do like sophisticated reasoning, or at least basic
Yeah.
reasoning.
As I said, same. Yeah. Basic reasoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but in general, like these things still behave somewhat like query engines on massive amounts of text. And this is why, by the way, prompt tricks like telling it you are an expert at financial,
Mm-hmm.
accounting, or you are an expert on law who interned with Supreme Justice so and so, before you ask it to do something related to that task, it actually helps. It's
Mm-hmm.
because you're starting to tell the model to use parts of itself that were trained on this kind of content.
Specific folders. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
it's almost like getting it in the right mindset to perform the task you want.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you have
Yep.
little transcription errors in the transcript, it can sometimes throw off the model way more than it would a person, because it's starting to look for like things that it can't find, because there's no, like it wasn't trained on a bunch of slightly mistranscribed conversations. It was trained on articles that were written online, right?
Yep.
Text that was put through autocorrect before it even reached the internet, so on and so forth. So there are still plenty of challenges out there. Um,
Right.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, off of Joe's thing, I think the biggest thing to kind of wrap up, at least my thought, and thank you, Joe, because it kind of solidified my thought, is that I think to do a really good model, I think you could, hook up ChatGPT or whatever through Zapier and do something, and you could have something 60% as good. But I think people don't understand the amount of data and how you have to clean the data to actually produce a really good model that is going to be able to handle things at scale and do it repeatedly. Additionally, like Joe said, is that you could have now where these models can scrape off like your website, but that's not going to make it conversational, right? It's like people are always like, yeah, can you just take the data off my website and then put it in? It's like, that's not a conversation. Like we have 25 million solar conversations through text and through call that we transcribe and we clean to feed these models. Like it takes a lot of data with actual conversations. It's not just like going to solar reviews and everything that they said or Sunrun or whatever and just taking their text and just inputting it into a model. That doesn't work. And you could actually overtrain models too. You could train it too finely tuned that if they divert questions or say something that is a little outside the scope, it will start to fail. So you could actually tune a model too specific.
Mm-hmm. I think that the data is the big point, right? And that's how when I met Siro Joe at SolarCon, that was the forefront of our conversation. It's like, okay, if we're talking solar sales, which is big, but it's still niche. You know, it's not real estate. It's not any of these insane markets. It will be for sure, but the data to train off of for both customer facing and sales rep facing is going to be so damn important, and having it obviously formatted correctly, but also being good data. So real conversations, for example, are really interesting. So, you know, I've mentioned already a few times, we launched our dialer, our new dialer this week. That data, having a model, I don't know, I'm going to get into technicalities I don't know about, but a dynamically training model based off of continuously adding real-time conversations would be really interesting, right? And then having the dispositions and the outcomes of those conversations, and then just leave it pure to data. What is the perfect solar sales script? Okay, well, I have 50 million sold. Maybe that's a big amount, but 50,000 appointments successfully booked here. And then of those 50,000, here's 30,000 conversations that actually sold, and just pure data. No random guru telling you, I think this is, try my secret sauce. It's just straight data. Is that the core of everything that we're trying to go for?
I mean, I don't know, Joe, if you want to answer that first.
I would say you're probably not going to get everything you want just from the text. I think at some level you also have to incorporate other modalities. But what you're really asking is, can you just dump all this into a model and get like the perfect solar salesperson?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that is I don't know yet, right? With current models, probably not, but these models are advancing very quickly. I think what's more likely to be required is some intermediate model that understands kind of the steps of a general sales process, and that's fine tuned on your industry. So, for example, solar. And the analogy for this is I read a paper about someone who made a bot that does chess commentary. And you can't just take a large language model, feed it a bunch of chess games, and then expect it to be able to say this was a great move, but the better move was this, or even make a move in that situation. And the reason is because of the way these models are trained. What is a large language model? All it's designed to do is to predict the next token given a series of texts that came before it. It's a much, much, much more advanced autocomplete than the text like complete that's on your iMessage when you're texting. You'll notice it gives you 3 options for what the next word will be. That's what it's doing. One token at a time. And a token isn't exactly a word, but you can think of it as basically like it's a word. And when you get it smart enough, sure, it has to understand a lot of things about the world and get really intelligent. But for most use cases, like it doesn't have to understand the model of a sale, just like it doesn't have to understand the model of a text. So what they did was they married it with some of the best chess models that understand how to make these moves. And then they got a chess commentator that could actually make intelligent commentary. Now, what's missing is there's no model that plays chess. There's no model that understands exactly where you are in a sales conversation and what the next step should be. Once you marry those two things, is one of the things that we're working on at Zero. You can get something really exciting. Like imagine, you finish up your day, you went 0 for 3, you're pulling out of the driveway from your last conversation. And because Zero knows your calendar, it knows it was your last call because we know your location, we know you're pulling out of the driveway, and we tell you your coaching digest is ready. You press the button, and through your car speakers, you start an interactive coaching experience where it says something like, hey, the way you frame the financing for Joe on Broad Street is known to kill deals for people who have low credit scores and are already concerned with debt. And you say
Yeah, that's
this
badass.
approach that you used was only such and such amount successful, but here are these other 2 approaches that are much more successful. And here are 2 examples of the top reps in your company using it last week successfully.
When is that
Right.
coming out? When is that coming out?
Dude, that's sick.
That's tomorrow?
That's sick.
No timeline on that, right? Because the whole point I'm making is there's a lot of uncertainty around like how to build the model that understands the sales process that you then marry with these large language models.
Yeah.
Well, surely the missing
Yeah,
piece, because we're talking text-based data, is we have, the 30-60-10 rule and 60-30-10 rule in solar, body language, tonality, and script. So what does it look like to quantify tonality? Because that is a massive piece to sales, right?
Yeah, well, it's similar to the question of like how do you quantify, how do you understand a sentence? And like the people who built GPT-3 and GPT-4 don't know how to answer that question on behalf of its model. Basically what's happening in the background is it's turning all this data into a series of super high dimensional numbers and then doing linear algebra over and over and over and over and over again until you get the output. And no one really understands exactly how it works under the hood. You can do some investigating by like seeing when certain aspects of the model are triggered when you give it certain inputs, but it's a very blunt tool. So that's probably the best answer I can give on that. The model figures out a way to turn it into a bunch of numbers that we can't interpret, and then does useful things with it, and it's magic.
It's
Do you
magic.
think
Yeah,
that's
that's a
the
good
missing piece,
explanation.
Do I think that's the missing piece, like how to quantify that?
Well, the quantify non-textual based data, right? Because our brains are doing so much more. As salespeople know this, that the data we get from body language and tonality, you don't even need to hear what the customer is saying, the words that they're saying. You can get the vibe where you are in the conversation just based off their body language tonality. Is that as soon as that, if that comes into play, that non-text, I guess everything is text, but that, non-tangible data, is that when everything explodes and the AI will be able to go, boom, okay, I know where they are, I know what you should do exactly at this point, because that's what sales guys do, right? It's the tonality of the customer tells you where to go as opposed to the words that you're saying, or at least on an equal or larger playing field.
Yeah. What you're saying essentially is the music is as important or more important than the lyrics.
Yeah.
Right. And that's true. Right. And so one of the bottlenecks is models that can do a really good job of hearing the music. But even once you have the music, like you still need to marry that with some model that understands what the music means in a sales context.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then can act on it, right? Because even if it's tonality and even if it knows what the lyrics are, in a sales context, it could be, hey, listen, this model is going to try to follow its prompt to the end versus actually, that whole thing of overselling, right? This person's already sold. Are you closing them right now, or are you waiting till the end of your presentation to do the close?
Yeah. Got to teach the AI to ABC. Always be closing.
Yeah. Should be rule number 1.
Then it might be too aggressive, though. That's the thing.
Right. Always be closing to a 25 percentile. Put it up to 27%. Nope, we tried to close within the first minute.
Put the temperature down.
Dial it back down. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One day it's going to happen.
Love it. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. So, go for it, Joe.
I guess we're hearing some kind of echo, so I apologize about that. I don't know if it's me or not. But you guys are giving such amazing answers, and I'm learning so much, and I really appreciate your opinion. And I wanted to add one more genre that AI is affecting right now: social media, ads, content creation. I know that's not really your expertise or your field, but maybe just your opinions, and also maybe how your tools can help somebody make content or social media. Like Jackson, maybe they take a screenshot of the conversation that the bot had with the homeowner and make that. Or Joe, obviously you hear conversations, you could post that, whatever it is. Like, how can your applications be used for social media and just AI in general? You think it's going to be where content is just going to blow up even more? Like music, you can literally take an AI and make a new Kanye West song in like 10 minutes. Like, that's amazing, right? Like, so how can AI really affect this whole the social media content industry?
Yeah, I think for our tool, what it allows is for people to be able to gather less information, so your cost per lead is less, and then you can have these operational costs be less, which will lead to less conversion. Um, I don't know if our tool in the near term will help directly with ads, but I think that I will go back to what I said before, where it will be something that you can create these amazing videos, these amazing ads. You can even create your own virtual content person now with AI, where you can literally have someone who's like your new ambassador, who you just type in there and it records videos for you that you could put up on social media, and you could produce as much content as you want. You could splice it with AI and put it on every different platform. And I think it's really going to come down to uniqueness. Like I said in the beginning, and USP is like, what's your unique selling proposition? Like, what do you offer that no one else does? In an industry that's slowly moving to being more and more commoditized, like Josh said, is like, how are you different than any other seller that's also pushing so much content? And that's why I think stuff like the organic approach, like Joe's pushing, is like people actually meeting people. I think that eventually it will almost revert back, where like when you meet someone at a farmer's market, like that might be a great way to still get solar leads, because you're actually building a connection where people are going to be so inundated with content, it's going to be tough to stand out on the social platforms.
Yeah, I guess
That's good, Joe.
the the question is like what are the implications once content creation becomes as simple as a prompt, right?
Yeah.
I can talk to my personal experience. One of the cool things I was able to do was make custom artwork that I got for every member of my family for Christmas this year. Um, so I think at a high level, it turns everyone into a creator. Now, there are a lot of people who don't like this, right? Um, I think we're in the part of the technology adoption curve where people are more squeezed than they are freed, at least in the creator economy. One of the reasons that a bunch of writers are striking now is because people are taking what they've written and then using AI to kind of expand on it, as opposed to keeping them on the job for longer. Now, I think a bigger reason they're actually striking is more because of the advent of the streaming platforms, which means like you can take someone on for like a quick season and then the show gets canceled, right? But eventually, I think what will happen is because people are able to produce so much more, there's going to be more and more opportunity for people to become creators. Imagine having an entire series completely tailored to all your favorite parts of other shows created for you on demand. And based on your reactions to a specific episode, it decides to take the story in a more interesting direction. A completely customized TV show that goes on forever and ever until you decide, you're tired of it, or a book, whatever it might be. That's a world that seems really, really cool. And that may be one that we're moving towards. Now, what are the bottlenecks right now? Image generation, Midjourney is unbelievable. The images that have been able to come out of that. The stories that the large language models are able to create are gorgeous. Josh brought up the ability to create music is like really, really impressive right now. You just type in a prompt and you get a completely custom Drake song. Um, what still hasn't become indistinguishable from something an expert human would create is video. Video is one of the last modalities where the domino hasn't fallen yet, but that domino will fall, and we'll have all sorts of beautiful creations, that are in our world.
Yeah, and I think that's where we get back into the KYC stuff and being verified. And I think that it's building a personal brand, because I think that's where it will come in, where instead of, like you said, right now, you could have it where you could have an AI representative of your brand that you could tell it to do whatever you want, and it could record video and you post that. It will be someone, people I think will want to relate to normal people still. And I think having that verification of like, hey, listen, this is an influencer, but this video is actually him, instead of it's some AI generated version of him.
There's one thing you said, Jackson, about you don't think impressions are going to get cheaper and that's only going to get expensive. Let me throw a thought challenge at you and see what you think about this. I don't know how deep you've gone into like digital marketing or creatives in the past and optimizing different ads, but one of the biggest things are small, tiny edits on your creatives, your pictures, your video, and the impact that it has on your cost CPMs and advertising costs. You'll change this section. We tried this with a yellow button, an orange button, and a green one, and the green one did 34% better. All these little ones have always been, you're always shooting in the dark, right? It's like, how about if I just randomly make this different a color or this, or I put bigger text or smaller text? It's always been really shooting in the dark. With something like solar sales that has a very, very clear, distinguished process from the creating of the copy all the way to the installation happening and getting funded, I'm really interested in and excited for, again, I mentioned before about a completely universalized platform, which is certainly something that we've worked on for the past few years, and having the data feed all the way from the creative straight to the funding, including all of those conversations, right? Customer facing conversations, sales rep facing conversations, analyzing audio recordings, and being able to, so right now, when you're a digital marketer, you pretty much have data up to the point where the lead comes in. Maybe you know what sells, right? But very, very little times. Usually it's just, oh, I'm generating
very little, yep.
or preset appointments, and that's the information that you optimize off of. But you always want to optimize on the bottom possible conversion funnel. So imagine the scenario where you have absolute data and control, and AI agents handling everything all the way from creative optimization straight through to install. You're analyzing conversations, audio and text conversations about, oh, this customer has a dog. How about for these types of customers, we create a copy with a dog in it, and it's just constantly and dynamically using the data feed of the entire interaction, historical interaction, to optimize front-end creatives and marketing. I think that would have an insane impact on CPMs.
No, 100%. And I think what you're trying to do is basically is an AI version of what Shopify does, right? You're taking offline events and you're bringing them online and then feeding them into algorithms, right? Shopify, it's great because everything's online, right? So you're taking that and putting it online and feeding it into the algorithms. I think the reason I say that is that any person now can go on YouTube, figure out how to run a Facebook ad, a YouTube ad, whatever else, come on that platform. It doesn't even have to be solar. You are competing versus every other person who's targeting that person for ad space. So that's why I think for forever, CPMs will raise. Now you could do things to optimize, and I think these AIs, and I think what you're doing is super, super cool. I think that will hedge against that bet. But when any person can be a creator and create a movie and create whatever else and go on there and then try to push what they're doing, unless we hit a recession and everyone has to pull back marketing spend, I think that naturally CPMs will raise because it's not just solar. It's any industry and any advertising. And there's only so many ad platforms, right? And maybe if Twitter gets big and a lot of ad budget moves there and we have these different social platforms, maybe it will spread out. But currently with the big four, year after year after year after year for the last 10 years, even as tools have gotten better and ClickFunnels and high level and everything is getting easier and easier to build on, it allows for more people to have access to the market. It's very similar to podcasts, right? Before it was like you had a radio and there was 10 radio stations. Now any person in their garage can create a podcast. So now you have this abundance of choice that makes it more competitive.
And the quality of the ads or the podcast, because of these DALL-E, Mid-Journey, like Joe said, is bloody astonishing. You're not limited by your photography equipment, by your studio setup, by your lighting, you can make
the budget is
beautiful.
Not a thing anymore, and that's what happens in any of these industries, right? It's like you don't need to have where the budget is a problem where you can't produce the same quality as Coca-Cola. You will soon be able to do that and have the same type of ad and target the same type of person, but with a different product.
Yeah. Now I've seen these TikToks of people just taking like a picture of a random product, throwing it through Mid-Journey or Photoshop's AI tool or something. It pops out with just this pristine Coca-Cola-esque beautiful ad image in 2 seconds. So
that used to be millions of dollars. So now there's that barrier to entry is just so much less. And that's why I think impressions will continue to go up, because you're spending for that attention. It's going to become an attention economy. It already is.
Mm-hmm. And the differentiation factor is the most important thing.
I was going to say, I think fundamentally who wins is consumers, because they're just going to see more customized ads that are more beautiful. And even the people without the budget, like you're saying, can now produce really beautiful targeted advertising.
Yeah.
And
I 100% agree. It demonetizes a lot of this stuff. And I think, that's a whole nother conversation, but I think 10, 15 years down the line, it becomes something that you need some type of universal basic income, and people will be working less. They thought that 40 years ago that the work week would be 20 hours, 15 hours. And I think that's where we'll finally move to. It will be more people's passion projects than it will be sales.
Or the differentiation just becomes people just get damn creative, and the wheel keeps turning. Oh, now these guys are doing this. Oh, now they're doing this. And we just can't imagine what it looks like in 10 years because it's going to move so quickly and so fast. Very interesting. Well, Joe, you got any last steps before we let these guys go? This conversation's been great.
Yes, I got a very important subject to talk about is the tools they're offering, because that's why we're here, because of their experience and expertise in AI. So Jackson, you have an amazing tool that every single professional solar person should at least know about. So please, you have the stage. Tell us about it, how it works, how long you've been working on it, why people should use it or who shouldn't use it. Just let us know all about it.
Sure, yeah. We've been working on this tool. We call it SolarBot, real original, I know. But it's an AI bot that works with 3 different models. It uses a finely tuned Razi model, Bard, but not really, because Bard I think will be more important later, and then a finely tuned GPT-3 model with now GPT-4 also for more actions. And it does qualifying, disqualifying, it does follow-up, it does confirmation, it prompts if someone wants to be called, it does a lot of cool stuff, which brings down operational costs. And I think any solar company, probably some reps who are really, really good reps, but if you're just starting out, it's probably not the best thing for you. But if you're a solar company and you're interested in decreasing your operational costs and increasing your conversions, it's a good tool.
Yeah.
Where can people find it? We'll put the links in the description, but.
So I have actually
it's just solarbot.chat. Yeah.
So I actually have a link you can use
Joe
too.
has an affiliate link.
And I'm pretty proud of it because it's not easy to find good domain names. And I got aisolarbot.com. So I just love it, just that I want that. I want everybody to go ahead and check it out.
That's a good one. I think that's better than solarbot.chat. That's a better domain than I have, and I own the product.
Well, I'm a referrer because I really believe in the product. So if you guys are interested, you can just go to aisolarbot.com and you can see all about it. Go ahead, Josh.
I still think I have I don't know. It depends on how much you love .coms or not. Siro, Joe, I told you about my domain. I think it's SolarCon. It's just my most recent really proud domain. It's solarsales.ai.
Put it in the chat. Which one do you like better? Solarsales.ai or aisolarbot.com? Let's see who wins.
the .ai domains have recently gotten much more expensive. I think it's some random country is like actually what .ai is. But
Yeah.
recently, yeah, it's obviously not really being used for that right now. So they ended up raising the price for the .ais. We got in
I
before
have to
before the.
I have to decide if I'm going to make an AI something about solar. If not, if there's any buyers that want solarsales.ai, I'll start at probably 100K at minimum for that domain. If you're moving into the space,
What a
solarsales.ai.
deal, 100K. There you go.
No, 100%, man. I got some
He's
badass
already
solar
selling it.
sales domains.
He's already
Oh yeah.
selling it. All right, Joe Jordan. If guys don't know about siro.ai, which I've been a big fan for years, and the new updates, tell us all about it. If nobody knows anything about it, how it started, how people can use it, who should use it, who shouldn't use it, the whole spiel, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason that my co-founder Jake and I built Zero is because of experience that we had selling Cutco knives to moms. I studied computer science in college. I never expected to like sales or be good at sales, but I got a letter in the mail to sell knives to moms, and I ended up loving it and being pretty good at it. I learned a ton from Cutco, from like willingness to bet on myself to risk tolerance to the sales skills that allow me to do what I'm doing now. And fundamentally, I believe that sales is one of the most important vehicles for financial freedom and personal agency in the economy. But what kind of pissed me off when I was at Cutco was when I became a manager, even though the numbers said I did really well. In my first campaign, we finished in the top 2% of offices in the company, top 10 out of about 600.
Killing it.
Most of my sales reps didn't get, thank you, even close to the experience that I had as a sales rep. And the reason was because they were making a bunch of simple mistakes in their conversations that were killing their chances at success. And so fundamentally, what Zero is about, it's the game film for sales. In the long run, we're building an AI coach for sales, which I kind of role played a little bit for you earlier. Um, but what it does is it records the conversations, it transcribes them, and it identifies the key moments in those conversations. When you're talking too fast, not asking enough questions, using the wrong frame to handle an objection. And then it helps you see how the top reps handle those moments so that you can catch and correct those mistakes and get to your next breakthrough in your sales career. What's the impact been so far? We've seen anywhere from 36% to more than 50% improvements, depending on where you are in your sales career from the case studies that we've done in your top line revenue. And people love it. We have I think we have the highest rated app on the App Store that is used by door to door sales reps. We have a
Hell
4.9
yeah.
over 400 ratings. And so people love it, and it's helping them improve their sales skills and make more money. And fundamentally, that's what we're here to do. Right now, we live in a world where the majority of sales commissions are um, realized by a small percentage of sales reps. And it's not the case that the average sales rep does okay. Right now, the average sales rep basically fails. And we want to create a world where the average sales rep has a real shot at creating financial freedom and developing themselves as people. So that's what we do and why we do it. If you want to learn more, go to siro.ai. That's SIRO.ai, and you can get a demo with our sales team.
And you can check out both Jackson Doyle's AI SolarBot and Zero on my website, joemoose.com. They're both, their links are right there. You can check it out. Click on it right there. And then we have Josh King, Sunivo. Tell us all about it, bro.
So everyone knows Sunivo. I've mentioned it a few times. We just launched a new dialer. It's the most comprehensive solar sales tools outside of AI. We haven't moved into AI yet. Probably much prefer to keep out of it and partner up with someone like Jackson or Joe. But we got this, CRM, scheduling, texting, dialing, automation, system design, financing, project management. Just rolled out the payroll system, commission system this week, auto dialer this week. Oh, everything going on. I think we have an event coming up as well, Joe. Should we let people know about the event? We're going to tell people about it.
Go for it. Let's go. If you guys don't know, go for it, Josh.
Oh, we got the Solar Villa coming up. Dominican Republic, week-long, super intensive, super all-inclusive remote solar sales training boot camp to get access to tools like Sanivo, bunch of training, leads provided, awesome time, drink, foods included, right on the beach. Biggest villa in Dominican Republic. Joe Moose coming down to guest train and a few other awesome trainers. Going to be a good time. Check it out, solarvilla.com. Jackson, Joe, you guys want to come to Dominican Republic in October?
Who doesn't?
I actually would love to.
That's what could happen. Las Serenas, baby.
I might be down.
Once you say it, you're in. So guys are in. Let's go.
That's a verbal agreement, verbal contract.
I'm holding you to that verbal, damn it.
Hey,
Nice
if you guys don't know, go to thesolaracademy.com and then check out the memberships there. Join today. All right, guys. Any last words? Jackson, any last words you want to leave off with? Joe Jordan, any last words?
I'm good.
The silent types, these guys.
No, these guys are great. I really appreciate you guys being on here. You guys are the best. This is awesome. We'll see you guys next time. We're out. Peace.